We'll do a roll call. Jason Nolan, Rusty Wooling, Kenna Dunlap Johnson, Sig Inger, Uffelman, Jonathan Yeagle, Francie Miller. Yes. Um, sorry. Next we have public comment and recognition of guests. I did have one public comment. I just want to check. John, I don't see you. There you are. Do you want to speak now, or do you want to do it as part when we have the discussion about the facility planning? Okay. Okay. Because I'm thinking of the track, and I'm going to let Hillary start off the conversation and give some background and see where things stand currently.
And let's see, there we go. Okay, welcome everybody. Thanks for being here tonight. I appreciate that. And you have on the screen in front of you, you have the presentation. The board has a screen in front of us, so we're all going to be following along together. And I have a list of different topics that we're going to be talking about tonight because they all follow along in one long progressive story. So we're going to talk a little bit about our Health Life Safety 10-year survey, Health Life Safety, or you'll hear the term HLS bonds, district goals prior to the pandemic, strategic planning that was done in the fall of 2021. Going to talk about the Sapphire Sky Wind Farm project. We're going to talk about some finance terms such as tax levy, tax rate, tax dollars, equalized assessed valuation. The shortcut for equalized assessed valuation, sometimes you hear of that called EAV. And then we're going to talk about the Track Field and Memorial Plaza project. That's what you thought you came for tonight, which we will get to. We'll talk about the scope of that project, the timing of that project, and who would be benefiting from that project, the users, and then also working cash bonds. So here we go. So Health Life Safety and those bonds, we are required by the State Board of Education to every 10 years have the district's architect and engineer come and do a Health Life Safety survey. We have received that list of items that have to be completed within a 10-year period. And that would be across all three of our buildings that we have, the elementary building, the intermediate junior high, and also the high school. We get a 10-year period to do that because the lists can be quite lengthy of all the things that need to be done for a safety standpoint. And that list does also include, they rank some of those items, like the top priorities, medium priorities, and then there's also some of those items are recommended items, and they typically say, they usually are recommended at first, and if they're not taken care of, they will become required items next time around. They also include estimated dollar amounts for how much money it would take a district to complete those items. So we had our survey that was completed in 2022. Some of the major work items on that 10-year HLS survey include roof replacement for both Snyder Elementary and the high school. Chillers, there's actually two of them, a large chiller and a small chiller that need to be replaced here at the high school. There's a duct insulation replacement project that's going to be happening within the next month or two here at the high school. That's on our HLS list. That's up on the roof of this building. Design and installation of a secure entry here at the high school. This is the one building that doesn't have what I would call the double entry system when you enter the building. No, so there's some lintel, stair, door work, a lot of concrete work in all three buildings that needs to be done. Some of the work on the HLS survey will be done by our maintenance staff, and some of the work will need to be hired out. The district, the bonds that we will go out for, the Health Life Safety bonds, will be for just over $3 million to cover that 10-year work list of items that needs to be done. Okay, so there's our HLS portion of our evening. District goals prior to the pandemic. Mrs. Wilson, our former superintendent, when she passed the baton to me in June of 2020, she was very clear that the Track and Memorial Plaza project was a very high priority. It was understood that since we were in the middle of a pandemic and nobody really knew how to educate children during a pandemic, it was understood that we might need to put the Track and Memorial Plaza project on hold, but we definitely needed to come back and revisit that. We just needed to figure out when that was going to happen and how that was going to happen. Fast forward a little bit to the fall of '21, If you remember, I do believe we were still living in the pandemic world at that time when we started 21. I do believe we were still coming back in with masks. Mr. Payton's given me a little bit of a nod. Yeah, we were still questioning some of how education was going in the fall of 21. We did a strategic planning event in that fall, in October. We came to this building on a Saturday. We had over 40 people that attended. District members, board members, community members came, and we developed 5 areas in which we felt like the district needed to develop some goals. One of those goal areas, broad goal areas, was facilities. Then of those 5 areas, we took the rest of the 21-22 school year, the administrative team did, and we added sub-goals to each of those 5 broad board goal areas, one of which was facilities. And during this past 22-23 school year, we have been giving the board, and through my newsletters, you've been seeing the quarterly progress updates in each of those 5 broad board goal areas. That's kind of like a tongue twister. So the facility area, goal 4.2 states that the goal is to upgrade the track and football field, including the Memorial Plaza. So that's something that's been in the works since the fall of 21. And one of the sub-goals underneath, 4.2.1, states, beginning spring of 2023, the superintendent will examine community fundraising and wind farm tax revenue as funding sources for the installation of an all-weather track, Memorial Plaza, and football field upgrade. When ready to move forward with the project, a committee will be formed to support the fundraising and promotion efforts. So, right on time, we've been taking a look at what our strategic plan asked us to do. So in the spring, we started looking at what possibilities do we have financially to make a track and field project actually happen, and including a Memorial Plaza. So now comes the information about Sapphire Sky Wind Farm. So some of you might be living in the McLean County part of our district, or the Bellflower area, and you are very well aware that we have had the Sapphire Sky Wind Farm project come in. We have quite a few, I think near the area of 60 of those turbines that are in the Blue Ridge district that are actually producing right now. They came online at some point during January of 2023. Located in McLean County, the turbines, like I said, right there, became operational in January 2023, and they have an enormous financial impact on our district's equalized assessed valuation, that's our property value, beginning with the tax levy that I will be writing this fall for the 24-25 school year. So the superintendent's job is to write the tax levy in the fall. That's how we make our request about the local tax dollars that will be given to the school district. But when you write the tax levy in the fall of 23, it's not going to bring money in until the 24-25 school year budget. So it kind of covers 3 different years. You write it in 23, you start seeing that money coming in during the 24-25 school year. So because we cover 3 different counties, when I write the tax levy, I have to work with 3 different county clerks. And so I have already contacted the county clerk for the McLean County because that's where those Sapphire Sky turbines are sitting. And they report that we will have an increase of $39 million in our equalized assessed evaluation for the levy that I'm going to be writing in the fall of 23. To give you an idea of what kind of an increase that means to us, Blue Ridge EAV has been in the high 170 million to low 180 million area. So an increase of 39 million to our EAV is extremely significant. So now we're going to talk some of the finance terms: tax levy, tax rate, tax dollars, EAV. And don't be surprised if there's a lot of people sitting in here saying, I hear these words all the time, but I'm really not familiar with what they mean. That's okay. It's because this doesn't work like home finance does, so it's kind of foreign language to most people. When you write a tax levy, you actually ask when it gets turned into the county clerk's office, you ask for dollar amounts in many different categories. Those dollar amounts are calculated by multiplying 2 different factors together. One factor that you use is the estimated equalized assessed valuation, the estimated EAV. And again, our EAV comes from 3 different counties, McLean, Piatt, and DeWitt. So you get the best numbers that those county clerks can give you, you put that together, and that's your estimated EAV. And then you're going to multiply by the different rates. There's a rate that you can use for the education fund. There's a different rate that you can use for the working cash fund. There's a different rate that you can use for the leasing levy. There's a different rate for every little piece that you're allowed to ask for money for. You multiply those 2 things together and you get a dollar amount. That's the dollar amount that you're allowed to ask for the education fund, for the leasing levy fund, for the special education fund. You add all those dollar amounts together and that's your tax levy. That's your total amount that you're asking for. Now, when one of those numbers changes, so for example, what happened last year was our property value, for those of us who live in the district, which is myself included, I would say something good happened, our property value went up. When your property value goes up, then the other factor that you're multiplying by goes down because it's a constant dollar amount that you're asking for with that tax levy. So let's just think of just some plain numbers for a minute. If my tax levy dollar amount that I'm asking for is the number 12, and I have used, I'm going to say, let's say I had 4 for my EAV and I had 3 for my different rates. I did 4 times 3 to get my 12, and I asked the county clerk for $12 in taxes. And then I found out, your property was worth more, so now this is a 6. Well, then my tax rate has to go down to a 2. So those factors have to still balance out as 2 factors that equal the same product. So because we had good news with our property value that went up, our overall tax rate for the taxpayers went down. So we had, last year, the EAV jumped up unexpectedly, which means that 1, your property value increased. That's a good thing as a homeowner. 2, the district's tax rate decreased. So I want to show you what's happened over the last 3 years. In levy year 2020, the tax rate from the school district, the overall tax rate was 5.28. Gave you a couple other digits there just for your listening pleasure, your reading pleasure. Last year, or the 2021 overall tax rate, 5.26. So it dropped just a little bit. The levy year 2022, since the property value went up at the last minute, the tax rate went down, 5.19. So actually just over 6 cents. Now, some of you are probably thinking, but my tax bill didn't go down, so how are you saying that the tax rate went down? That doesn't make any sense to me. Well, the tax rate and the tax dollars are actually different. Because your property value went up, it's a bigger multiplier, so even though the rate went down, they're still collecting their dollars, right? So many people look at their tax bill and don't understand why I say that the tax rate is dropped when they see their tax bill is increasing. Your tax bill comes from your EAV multiplied by the tax rate. The only component that I have any control over is the tax rate. I dropped the tax rate 6 cents, over 6 cents during the last tax levy, okay? What I also want to remind us is that as a property owner, we have to remember that we should be thankful that our EAV is holding strong. We have wonderful farmland around us, very rich farmland, and that's one reason why we can continue to see that EAV increasing. And if you're going to sell your home, that's the time that you would be especially thankful for that EAV increasing, okay? All right, now we get to the reason why you're here. Track Field and Memorial Plaza project. The track and field portion of the project, we've done some preliminary work with a company called Byrne & Jones. The project has many, many components. I'm going to simplify it extremely down to some of the bare components here. What we're looking at is pricing for the overhaul of the current grass football field. They would completely remove that, take it down to the bare bones, work with the underneath part to make sure that we're installing an irrigation system that can help to maintain a very nice grass football field. And then they'll reinstall the dirt and the grass on top. We're looking at installing an 8-lane track, 42-inch lanes, And I call them the ancillary items. I'm looking at Mr. Miles. That's probably not the best name to call the shot put area, all the other pieces of the field equipment, but that's the term that I use. So all the extra things that we need for the rest of the field items there. Replacement and new location of the lighting system. Replacement and new location of the visitor bleachers. An upgrade to the home bleachers, and fencing in the entire project. Now, if we decided to remodel or redo the home bleachers, that was in an original quote. That's an extremely expensive part of the project, and we decided we didn't want to spend taxpayer dollars there. We wanted to leave the home bleachers where they were. We do know that the portion that your feet are on when you're in the home bleachers is wood, and it does need to be replaced, so we need to do some upgrade of those home bleachers, but we want to be able to leave them where they are. In order for everything to actually fit and to make a 42-inch lane, 42-inch wide, 8-lane track, everything's going to need to move a little bit to the west so it can fit in. That's why the lighting is moving. That's why the visitor bleachers are moving. Visitor bleachers are much easier to move because of their size compared to what the home bleacher size is. And we do want to fence it because we want to protect our investment. We don't want the temptation of vehicles being on the track when they should not be on the track. One question, one thing that I didn't put in any of the writing here is, did we consider turf? Yes, we talked about turf. Would that be an additional cost? Yes, it would. Are there pros and cons to turf? Yes, there are. There are some injury pieces nowadays, maybe a little bit less than when turf first came out. We're not looking for what I would say the absolute Cadillac version. We're looking for a very nice option, but I don't know that we have to have the absolute very best thing out there that there possibly is. We want to still be a good user of our funds. And here's a picture, if you'd like to see kind of the whole picture. Do I have a laser on here? Is that what this? Ooh, look there. Does that show on your screen? Like, do you see me with a laser? No? Okay. All right. Well, okay.
It's better if you point to them and not us.
Thank you. There we go. I can't get right in the bottom middle. Bottom middle is the home bleachers. You got your visitor bleachers right there. If you can tell, what that says right there is that the visitor bleachers doesn't look like much of a move, but they're moving from that bottom piece right there up just a teeny bit, okay? And let's see what else is moving. The lighting system. Current lighting location is very close to, that's where the writing is. The current lighting is right here, if you can see that. And the new lighting is going to be closer to right where the home bleachers are. Okay, so they're going to have to give us more space to be able to fit everything in. Okay, if you'll notice, we actually have that concession stand. Sorry, laser and. Yeah, so our concession stand is like right on top of the track. We're gonna have to figure out what we're doing right there. There's a blown up image right there. You can maybe see a little bit more, but up on the top of the screen, you can see the current away bleachers, new location, bless you, new location of the away bleachers. Down on the very bottom, again, the lighting location, it was right inside, the inside of the track. Now it's going to have to move to the outside.
Outside of the track there, is that a retaining wall where the yellow blocks are? What is that?
There you go. And then Evan or Brian, can you talk about the, let's see what else, shot put? Shot put and discus up on the very top, so that's the west side of the field. We actually feel like we have plenty of space for those things in there. High jump? Yes, the fencing would, yeah, would the fencing include the shot put and disc as well? No? Everything but that? Do you think the fencing, Evan, would include the long jump? Yeah. Yeah. Okay, go to the pictures, I think. Thanks for your patience on that. Okay, so here's some of the things that I tried to answer some of the questions that we've heard so far about who's going to be able to use this. Tell me a little bit more. Soccer right now is at South Field, so the question is, would they be able to use this new field? Yes, if they choose to do so. Absolutely, they would be able to do that. Band, they would be able to host competitions. Right now, we've not been able to do so. One of the things we've talked about is, would we have enough seating for that? And somebody has advised that you can also rent some bleachers if we had a band competition here. Sometimes a lot of seating would be needed for that on a very large competition. We might have to rent some seating for that. Track athletes would actually be able to properly practice at home. The facilities that we have right now do not allow our track athletes to do what they need to do to properly prepare for their season. We would be able to do so. Track meets would be able to be hosted here at home, and we would have significant upgrades to the condition of our football field. Other considerations, junior high track would be able to share the facilities with us. Snyder Elementary and high school classes could have access during the day. JFL could be scheduling events there, and community members, we would love to have that open to them. Obviously, school events would take priority, but after that, we would love to have the community members be able to use this facility. We feel very strongly that this is a community project, and we want them, the community, to be able to use this. So how much will it cost, and how do we make it happen financially? For what's been quoted to us by Byrne & Jones, if we sign now, we can lock in prices to do the work in the spring of '25. So almost 2 years away, we can lock in prices, which is a pretty fantastic deal. We believe that $3 million will cover the work that we've talked about. There's a little bit of a cushion in there because they ask you to set aside some money just in case when they do the excavation, if they find that they need a little bit more preparation for the soil for getting things started. So we feel like we can, for $3 million, be able to do what we have just shown you. A school district can issue working cash bonds to finance projects such as this. And I want to tell you how we can do that. With our EAV, our Equalized Assessed Valuation, that's increasing from the Sapphire Sky project, we anticipate being able to issue both the health life safety bonds and the $3 million in the working cash bonds, and drop the tax rate an additional 1 to 2 cents in the next levy, meaning the 2023 levy, repaying the full debt from both the HLS bonds and the working cash bonds within 14 years. This means that the wind turbines are covering both the needs of the HLS projects and the wants of the track and field project through the increase in the EAV. This is kind of like if you tried to write the dream scenario for having both your HLS projects covered and a project as large as a track and field. I don't know that you could have come up with a better scenario as something like what we have right now. The question has been asked, should we just wait and save our money until we can afford out of pocket the cost of the project? Because that's what a lot of us do at home with our home finances. School finance doesn't work the same way as the finances do in the home. The district can only ask for or levy funds in certain categories. like the ed fund, the special ed fund, the leasing levy, and so on, the working cash fund. And most categories have a rate limit. I can only ask for 3.6% in the ed fund. In the working cash levy, I can levy for 0.05%, which means 0.0005 of our EAV. And in order for us to raise the money that we need through that working cash levy, it would take so many years to do so. Meanwhile, the cost of the project continues to go up and up and up. For those of you who have been involved with the track project from before the pandemic, the track was quoted previously at 1.1 million. It didn't have an overhaul of the football field, but it included the track, it included the fencing around, it included a lot of the same components, and it was quoted back then at just over 1 million. I think 1.6 million is what Kenna said today. So if we're looking at almost 3 million, imagine what could possibly happen 15 years from now when we might be able to touch it after levying, 0.05% from the working cash levy. What other benefits will this project bring to the community? Rural districts are finding that families are leaving the larger districts in favor of smaller, safer schools and communities. When families shop for prospective schools, facilities are noticed and noticed first. This project could potentially help us grow our district enrollment. The project will draw visitors to Farmer City when events can be hosted at the new facility. You bring in a band competition, you have people coming to your town, shopping, eating, getting gas. When they're coming to a track meet, they're coming and they're probably going to stay and shop or eat or get gas. More visitors brings opportunities for financial growth for Farmer City. Memorial Plaza. I met with a group of alumni last week. We had a great visit to discuss the long-standing plans for the Memorial Plaza. And at that meeting, I shared this information with them. I told them they were my guinea pigs. They got the first round of the presentation. We talked about the timing for the construction of the Memorial Plaza. It's going to be right after we build the track and field. We build the inside part, and then we build right outside of that. Just makes sense geographically to do the plaza right afterwards. And the Memorial Plaza Committee is going to start meeting again. We'll do that twice annually, and we'll set the first meeting for October of 2023. And so if there's anybody here tonight that was not at that meeting and you would like to be a part of the Memorial Plaza Committee, you are welcome to email me, and we'd be happy to put you on our email list, and you're only committing yourself to a couple meetings a year. So we'd love to have you come and join us, and we'll be hopefully having plans and finances all figured out, so as soon as that track is done, we go straight into construction of the Memorial Plaza. And there's an email address and a phone number. So that's the end of my presentation, and I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay, do any board members want to make a statement, or do we want to just open up to any questions and respond that way? Okay.
I don't want to give anybody any ideas, so I'd like to hear what everybody has to say.
Okay, so at this time, if anyone has any questions or comments, John, if you wanted to go first since you turned in your form for a public comment.
Are we on, Doug? Yes. All right. Well, I've been here for pretty much all my life, and around this school since it's been built. I worked hard to see that the referendum passed to build this building. So I'm not afraid to see schools spending money, that's for certain. I don't know that this is an appropriate place to put our first $3 million. I see, yes, facilities look good, but what about what we're standing in? This has been very poorly maintained through the years. We've known for at least 10 years that our roofs needed to be replaced, and we've saved not much money for that. Having been a roofer all my life, I can look at these roofs. I've seen a report from a contractor quite a few years ago that would have extended the life of these roofs. And I agree with him. They were really high-quality roofs when they were put on. And they don't need to be at the end of their life. That's a big chunk of what needs to be spent out of the HLS funds. Even our windows, which is another big chunk, they aren't the best by any means, but they would stop a lot of the water that they let in if we simply caulked them. So I don't see maintenance around here being done at the level we need them. We probably have $50 million worth of buildings. I don't have any idea what that amounts to, but it can't be much less. We have one guy to do maintenance, and he spends a good share of his time outside doing track and field projects. We can't seem to hire somebody to actually help him. That's been apparently turned down. We have offered to get somebody to mow, and hopefully that'll happen, so that he would have some time to work on buildings. But so far, his summer's been pretty well used up doing other things other than what he intended. So one of the things about this track project is maintenance. We can't maintain our buildings right now very well. I don't know, you're saying it'll be paid off in 14 years, that's good. But will there be money somewhere to take care of it? As rubber fields deteriorate fairly fast. And irrigation in central Illinois takes a lot of maintenance. It breaks when water freezes and things like that. So I'm concerned that what we're proposing, if it looks worse now than it does, worse in 10 or 15 years than it does now, then we won't have gained much. Say we all know that our track program is not really growing, but if we put $1 million into that playground over at Schneider, we have 250 kids there probably that would use it twice a day. I see lots of community participation in that playground. We're walking on foot-deep moldy mulch that we just keep piling up deeper and deeper. And our actual playground facilities are deteriorating. But I don't know, it seems to me that would be a lot better use of some money. So something to think about. I would, like I say, maintenance is, I guess you'd say, dear to my heart, and when it's not getting done, hasn't been done for many, many years. It's not just, oh, well, we've got a problem with an employee or two, and so we didn't get much done this year. It's been a continuous thing through the last two administrations, especially, and only so-so. It's kind of like our roofs leak. We've got lots. We've probably got 40 roof leaks in this building. The roof at Schneider is completely worn out. And if your roof's leaked at home, you'd probably do something about it. I don't know, but you know, it's like, oh, I've got to borrow money and fix my roof. I've got to do it now. I was told, I used to aggravate our previous O&M director and say, hey, it's a nice day, why don't we fix roofs today, knowing we have all these leaks. And he finally said, well, in '22, we'll have the HLS survey, and they will condemn the roofs, and then we'll borrow the money, not save for it, we'll borrow the money and fix the roofs. Well, it's not 2022 anymore, and the roofs are priority for 2024. So we're continuing to leak. We're deteriorating sheeting, we're deteriorating steel, supporting steel, we're constantly replacing tile that are full of mold. I was really glad. I was here with my daughter late for theater a couple weeks ago when we had a really big rain and the ag room flooded. So I was here to clean it up. Otherwise, it would have ruined the freshly waxed floor. I just spent today going through the upstairs, going through water-soaked, freshly waxed floor, trying to get it looking good again. So like I say, I'd like to see more responsibility, and we've got a huge amount of debt right now. And maybe we could put some money towards paying down debt. I don't know if that's silly or not, but just because it's low interest rates. I was at a board meeting 3 years ago, and we had just refinanced some bonds and made some money, and the bond man said, oh, we could look at the 2013 bonds that you haven't even been paying on. I thought, wow, most people would like to have been paying down their debt at least a little bit, so I don't know. It's something to think about. I would hope the community would be responsible and think about these things. Thank you.
Anyone else that would like to speak? Larry?
Well, I don't have a planned speech or anything, but I think that it's great that the Blue Ridge School District, the board is finally looking at this football field out here. When you go to other schools, you go to other communities, you see what they have progressed so much. And what we have out here is a weed patch. It just, to me, it says something bad about the community. It says something bad about the school district, not just Farmer City. So I think it's great. And as far as a memorial plaza, that's well overdue. Well overdue. I grew up with Kenny Rittenhouse. Something should have been done years ago. I know that's not on your shoulders, but I think you're taking a tremendous step forward. And I hope that you go through with this. I think it's well use of the money. And I know you haven't gotten it yet. I understand how that works, but you'll get it. And you'll make everybody proud of the Blue Ridge School District and the sports. So thank you.
Anyone else has any comments or questions?
Yeah, you know I can't keep quiet. No, and I'm not going to, I didn't come prepared to really say anything either. But I have told people over the last, I don't know how many years, it was mentioned that our track program was not growing. Well, let me tell you what, go over to the junior high and see what those kids run on. They run on dirt. And I'm proud every year when we have junior high kids and high school kids who are state qualifiers. And I just think, what could we be doing if they had a little bit better practice facilities? I mean, and be able to host track meets. That's another big thing. But yeah, I think it's important. We need to do something, and I think we have the opportunity to do it now.
Anyone else have any comments or questions? Okay, Mr. Miles, I'm going to just call on you. Do you want to come say something as athletic director, or maybe what this could do?
Put me on the spot, huh? Put me on the spot, all right. Well, I've been athletic director since 2015, and I understand both sides on the spectrum here. I just jotted down some points, since I've been doing this for 9 years. I've sat through tons of these meetings for 9 years, and this doesn't include the emails and the other correspondences. And I love the fact there's some traction going forward that this might get done, just not have another meeting to have a meeting. Since I've been here 14 years, it's kind of uninspiring and underwhelming to go and take your PE class or track athletes out there and try to have a fitness day, train appropriately for track, have a practice, You get a drug once, there's weeds that come up, it gets ruddy, it's unsafe on your ankles. We have athletes going to other schools, Cole Pemble being one as a long jumper, second in Class A state. Alexis Wyke, I've had Jenna Mazingo before, just so we could have, a facility to work on. I know there's questions about our track programs not growing. I don't think that's totally accurate. When I came here in 2010, I think we had 264 kids in our enrollment. Now we're at 187 IHSA number. So if you do the, comparisons of percentages, I think we're right on par. And if you had something like this, I think you'd get a few more kids interested to go out. That's just me. Attract move-ins, as said, a facelift to the school. This building and gyms or the new gym is now going to be 23 years old. Attract move-ins would be nice. Mr. Mitchell hosting band competitions. We had a News Gazette Athlete of the Week and WCIA Athlete of the Week, and to have that video footage of what we had out there did not look good for the school, in my opinion. And I felt sorry for her to be shed in that light, but that's what we had at the time. Other things that weren't brought about, you could go back to not only Schneider using it for, like, say, an elementary PE field day, you could have your night walk out there. The price locked in for Byrne & Jones is great. I know when I started this, having meetings with them in 2015, even something simple as a $4,000 topography scan of our land would have been cheaper back then to have that out of the way and already done then. That would have been transferable now. So, just taking the baby steps. Like Dr. Stanford talked about, if they need to dig up the soil, the subsoil, that's soil stabilization. Do you have a weak spot somewhere? That's all part of that they talked about in the nuts and bolts. For me as an AD, to be in good graces with our conference by being in a conference hosting rotation would be nice. With our 12 girl athletes, I didn't say this in my last board meeting for our sports report, but our 12 girls, we placed 4th out of 11 teams in conference. If we had better facilities, maybe a few more girls, maybe it could have been better. And the boys with 7, they placed 6th out of 11 teams. Again, numbers do matter in track for especially relays. The Byrne & Jones is a polyurethane track. It's not a latex track like Leroy, so it'll be more durable for years to come. Yes, I know the reapplication or the re-up of the track itself, a lot of schools are going through that. I think Arthur being one coming up this year, maybe Dr. Stanford and I can get with their administration to see what that's going to cost them, because we have their conference track meet there. But you get to some places, and that's, they say about every 8 to 10 years, but really you can do 10 to 14 years, in my opinion, for a resurfacing project. Like Dr. Stanford talked, it'd be a nice segue to the Memorial Plaza and entrance that we've been talking about forever. The specs and plans are laid out. It'd be a nice, aesthetically pleasing for our community and schools. I know Mr. Eagle said in his good points, but, if we don't spend the money on a project like this that's locked in with the low rates, then what are we going to be allocating our money towards to make our district look in a better light? So those are just a few of the things.
Anyone else?
I'm not going to come up there, but I just had a question as to how it will be utilized for the junior. Like, how will the junior high be able, I'll get up there. All right, come up, Hillary. So, yes, so my question is, I will have a high schooler who is part of a state track champion team, and they've ran track over in junior high. They run on the streets, they run in the hallways. They can't run on the track. It's not safe at the junior high. So my idea is, if it does go through, I know it was on there as like to be thought about. I don't really think it should be thought about. I think it should be something that happens. The junior high needs to be able to have access to the same types of things. Because my son is an 8th grader. He's coming to you next year. And all of his friends and all the ones that's placed in, junior high state track competitions. And they have to utilize what we have over there. So I wonder how important it is that they also get to use the facilities, and that would be something that we would make sure that would happen.
Yeah, I think
doing something over there also to make track over there safe?
I think, I don't have exact answers, Lindsay, but I do think it's a matter of, how do we get the kids over here after school? How do we share the facilities so both could be practicing at the same time, perhaps? Both coaches, both sets of kids. If there was a track meet here, then maybe that would be a day that junior high could not come and practice. If there was an away meet, then, junior high could host a meet here if the high school track meet was away. So I think it's a matter of both ADs being able to schedule things together that they've not had to do before, but I think when we have the facility, we'll learn how to do that so everybody has that access. Will it be perfect? Probably not, but I think we'll get better at learning how everybody can have access to it as much as possible.
Are there plans to do anything for the junior high in terms of track?
Of building one over there?
Not building a track, no, but making it usable?
I have to say, one project at a time. There's a lot of things, and I'll tell you, there was another call from a different wind farm today, a company that wants to come and talk to the board maybe this month, maybe in August. So there's a lot of possibilities that are out there, but I'm actually trying to focus on this one right now and haven't been able to focus on the others.
I just want to say that as we've talked about this over time and as we've talked about it in the past, pre-pandemic, when we would have like Blue Ridge Connect type events and community members would talk about this importance of the track and field project, the importance of the Memorial Plaza. I mean, it's been talked about. For me, at least, I've always seen it as this would benefit the junior high track also. That I've always felt that that program would benefit from this. And again, I'm speaking just on myself, but when I look at it, I don't look at it as a high school track only. I look at it as the track program overall could benefit from it. So I would like to hope that there would be more days than none. They're not, that those kids are coming over and they're running on that track and they're getting that experience and they're understanding how to, hand the baton off, because that's really when they're learning how to do that, is when they come into junior high track. By the time they get to high school, you hope that they have all that and seeing where those passing lanes and all of those things. And I feel like if we had a facility like that, our, ADs would do their best to utilize it the best we can so that all kids, I mean, when I look at the project, for me personally, I look at it as a district, to benefit the district, and how many ways can it benefit the district as a whole, meaning our schools and our community. So I don't think that our thoughts are, oh, this is all about the high school and nothing junior high. Now, is the track over there really bad? Yes. Is the track here really bad? Yes. They're both just really bad. I don't know, just with things we've been shown, of how we could try to throw money over there to try to make it better, because I think unless you do an actual track project, you're just throwing money that truly is barely even putting a Band-Aid on the problem. So I don't know if that would be the best use of finances either, trying to make this better and seeing how we could use it together and make that benefit all of the students that want to participate in that. I hope that answers your question a little bit. Does anyone else have a question or a comment? Any board members? You're being really funny tonight. I don't know.
I was just going to see if we wanted to address any of John's questions, about the playground, or why aren't we saving money for infrastructure costs, which I'm sure we are, but that it's limited on how much we can save. I think you mentioned that earlier, Hillary. You can only set aside 5 cents per dollar. Is that right, on your slides there?
Right. That's
So
the working cash levy. That was an example of, how do you build up a savings account for a public school district? That's how that gets built up.
Yeah.
And about the roofing, I mean, we've just said roofing is going to be done in the summer. Well, maybe I didn't put the time frame on there, but we're going to do that in the summer of '24. We go out for bids this fall. So we have to issue the bonds, we have to go out for bids, and we have to do the work when the kids are not here. So I'm doing that as quickly as we can once we got the report in. As far as the windows, windows are, for this building, are another item that's on the HLS list. So that's probably not going to be the summer of '24. Again, you can only do so many projects at a time when your staff is limited, because even though outside contractors are doing it, it still takes a lot of time from the inside personnel to do the coordination and things as well. So trying to bite off the right amount of project at the right time. So yes, those things are being looked at. I can't speak for prior coordination of those things, but we're now getting to those as quickly as we can. As far as the playground, I mean, like Lindsay just said, well, what about this next project and what about the next project? Could the playground at Snyder be something that we look at? Yes. This track project was something, like I said, that was handed to me when the superintendent baton was handed to me in 2020. This was the item that was on the list, and it was said, please do your best to get this done. It's not an if, it's a when and how. And so this has been part of strategic planning. This has been what's been on my task list to do. You know, when we do strategic planning again, or if we want to modify something and look at a Snyder playground, because we're going to have other options, the wind farm money that's coming in is going to allow us to have some other abilities that we haven't had previously. If we want to start budgeting for, looking for ways to price out something for a playground, we can start doing those things. By doing a track doesn't mean that nothing else is going to be able to happen.
Anyone else?
I did have one other comment I forgot, that having been involved in the theater the past 30 years or whatever here at Blue Ridge, something we can be very proud of. We have an Oscar winner in our alumni, part of a movie that won an Oscar. So an auditorium would benefit absolutely everybody in this district constantly, not just the theater, the music program, assemblies. Everybody could get some good out of an auditorium, and it would really look good. I've been to the new auditorium at Leroy, and a couple of those taxpayers were crying about their costs, but it's a beautiful facility, and it's very well done. So there's plenty of options out there.
Yeah, I think many people would think an auditorium would be great. I think a brand new auditorium would probably be more than $3 million, but it's definitely something that could be put on that wish list. I know for a very, very long time, the track and field project has been on what was given to us for projects and upcoming things. It was always on the wish list portion of that. So I definitely think during strategic planning is obviously a time that we try to get ideas from people, but we're always, you know, ready to hear different ideas that we can add to different lists. Something like an auditorium could be something that, you know, if the communities would like to see something like that come into our district, the planning of like where an auditorium would be and how we would make that happen, that's definitely a great wish list item to add on there, because it would just benefit in so many ways.
There was something that said to me this afternoon. So what would you say to people out there that say, spending $3 million on an extracurricular facility, I know it's been in strategic planning, but that really ought to be on a ballot? That was suggested to me this afternoon by a couple of people. Well, they were together, and so they agreed. But I'm just, you know, I know we've got the opportunity now to move on it, but what would you say to that concern?
Well, there is a hearing process before you go out for bonds, and with our schedule, I believe that would be in the month of October. So they'd be welcome to come and go through the hearing with us and ask questions at that point, but it doesn't require a referendum.
What I told him. That's what I told him.
Good job, board member.
Yeah.
I just want to say, I don't feel like there's a lot of this. I haven't had people approaching me negatively. I've been trying to ask people as much as I can, especially in the last couple of months, people that I would come across saying, what are your thoughts on this? What most people are saying, why has it taken so long? That realistically has, when the idea first came up about how can we make the track better, and this was, I mean, my kids are 32, 28, and 25 now, so they were still in school. And I went to Hayworth when they redid their track, and I don't know if anyone has seen their track. It is nice. It is fenced in. When they first redid theirs, I thought, well, we can just get people together and we can just fundraise. I mean, I can fundraise with the best of them. No, not for a project of this size. Like it's a very huge task to try to fundraise for something like that. And so we just felt like we kept hitting roadblock after roadblock of how could we make this happen for our community. And then the idea came with the Memorial Plaza. And I know many of us thought, okay, like we really want that to happen. That would be a really, like a great sense of pride for the Blue Ridge community overall. So we could recognize where we've all come from and how we've come together to create this district. So then the track project became even more important. And I know we call it the track project, but I personally feel it's so much more than that, because our track teams will benefit greatly. When you come to a football game, you're going to notice that. But if you have a grandchild or you have a child that's practicing t-ball on a Monday night in June and you want to go walk the track, there's going to be a really nice track that you could then benefit from. Or our JFL program. If our football program's going to grow, our JFL program. So if they could have nicer facilities to practice on and to learn on, that's going to help. There's just a lot of benefits from those different angles that have just been told to us over and over. The track project, like I said, it has been on a list for a very, very long time. So when we saw that there was a way to make it happen without going for a referendum, because usually referendum says we're going to raise your taxes. We want you to approve us raising your taxes. When we went to referendum for the Mansfield building, right now we're currently in a situation where your tax rate will actually go down, and we can do a project that's been on the list for at least 10 years. So that would be a pretty amazing thing, that we don't need to come to people and say, hey, we need your tax rate to go up. We're going to raise it by 10 cents. Actually, we're going to lower it by a couple cents. And every opportunity that this board has had, the current board, we haven't had much of an opportunity. Some people were just seated recently, but on my entire time on the board, every opportunity we have, even if it's lowering the tax rate 1 penny, and 1 penny may not sound like much, but to us, it's important that if we can do that and still have facilities to educate and for our children to participate in things that are good facilities, we try to balance that in the best way we can. So, I don't know, that's just what I wanted to share and bring to light. Kenna, Jason?
Yes, thank you. And I just want to echo, I mean, every person that I have spoken to about this is supportive of it. I'm not hearing anything different when I speak to individuals in the community. But I just wanted to say I think a track is a staple to a school and really serves the students in the community. And we've listed all of the various ways that it does that, from physical education, athletics, band, community rec leagues, community groups, health and wellness for the community. I do believe that, truly, I believe it is a priority for our district. As a parent going to events, I haven't been to one school that didn't have a working track other than ours. Also, having been a part of the Blue Ridge Education Foundation for several years, I understand the challenges that go along with trying to raise money for a school district. Trying to engage stakeholders in that process is very challenging. And I truly do believe we need a track, and I support the decision to move forward.
Surveillance. If we're spending that kind of money on something,
person just technically vandalize the pool. I'm quite nervous if we open this up and have the community on it. I'd certainly love to walk on it. But, you know, what is there to say, you know, if somebody really damages the thing, what are we gonna do about that?
Well, I don't believe there would be a reason why we wouldn't have our security cameras out there. We're right at the end of a 2-year network refresh, which we've replaced every camera, every phone, every door access. We've done a huge project. And with the network refresh, we're also lowering the cost of a lot of the technology costs that we have, which is another good byproduct, but having better quality cameras as well. But I would think that a camera installation would be a necessary component.
And unfortunately, I think when you say like opening it up to the community, I mean, it will be fenced, but it's not like they're going to be 10-foot fences. So realistically, if a teenager, and I hate to just target teenagers that could possibly want to get on the track and do damage, it will be a fence that someone could climb. Now, would I want to climb the fence to walk the track? Probably not. So I would hope they would have the gate open for me.
I'm actually concerned about dogs. Like, you know, people walk their dogs out there and then dog cleanup, but really, I mean, claws. Like,
Yeah, and I think that some of those things that, when the project is coming to completion, those would be the kind of discussions and, you know, signage, if signage needed to be put up, if people can't use common sense, those kind of things. But are all the nuts and bolts, like the specific details down to those kind of things, all of that's not set in stone, obviously, at this point, because we have to just get the project rolling first, and then when we get closer, those are definite. I know when the project was first discussed, the fence was an optional, and as a board, we kept saying, a fence is not optional. You know, it just isn't. Like, someone would drive their truck on that track, 100%. So we just knew that a fence had to be part of the cost. It just had to be. So saying other safety, you know, security measures, 100%, I can't imagine that anyone in the community wouldn't want it to be as secure as can be and to take care of it.
Well, I'm just gonna, I mean, the last board meeting we had, I gave my statement on it. I think it'll drastically increase the way people positively look at our community and school. Just like you said, you go to any other school, and we go to a lot of them for softball and basketball, and you look around, and we are the only one with the center track. I mean, it's like we're stuck in back then, you know. We had a lot of pushback on wind farms, and so this is one thing, I guess, that the people who didn't want them can be happy about, you know, that there's, the money's going to something good instead of being wasted. I don't feel it's a waste, so I'm in support of it along with Kenna, so.
I just wanted to say thank you for everybody coming out to speak, whether it's about this or anything else. I think that's a really important part for the public to participate in, is talk to your board members, whether it's here or out there. If you don't voice your questions and you don't voice your concerns, it's very difficult to act on them. So thank you very much for getting up and speaking.
Okay. Last chance if anyone has any comments they want to make. If not, I would take a motion in a second to adjourn the meeting at 7:05. Roll call. Sorry. Jason Nolan? Yes. Rusty Wolling? Yes. Kenna Dunlap Johnson? Yes. Sig Inger? Yes. Chelsea Leffelman? Jonathan Yeagle? And Francie Miller? Yes. Thank you so much, everyone.